Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Butt Fumble with Brandon and Travis, the 2 week special. Had to take a little hiatus. We had a COVID scare here at the podcast offices. Turns out everybody was negative. We're good. We just had a little case of the fantasy flu. Brandon, tell me what kind of symptoms you experienced with the fantasy flu this week.
Well, to be honest, before I even go into those types of details, I forgot the name of our podcast was Butt Fumble. So I have to relive that for just a minute. Fantasy, Travis, it comes with a lot of cereal, whole milk only, and Cocoa Puffs primarily. It's a really strong craving that I get when I'm feeling ill. But other than that, to your point, we did dodge a major COVID bullet.
Yeah, that's good. For me, it was just a pretty serious rash across my chest. Doctors checked it out. They said it's probably just stress from the absolute butt whipping I've been taking every week. Fair enough. Anyways,
you mentioned whipping. I didn't know if. Well, never mind. We won't go there.
We'll get into that later. The point is, happy, healthy, moving on. We're going to take a quick look at week 6. It's going to be nice and short-lived. There's really one thing we have to mention. Brother Rumble 2021, the shame game of the week from week 6. I'm going to let you say it because I can hardly get myself to.
Yeah, I'd almost rather you taste those words, but I will do us the pleasure of talking about Brother Rumble. You're right, Trav. It's really the only thing on anyone's mind. 2 weeks now removed, and the dust has not settled. In fact, I was driving through your neighborhood the other day, and Gage was still egging your house, which oddly enough is also his house. So it's a whole thing.
And the worst part was also my eggs. I paid for those.
It's true.
I will say with my loss that makes 3 total wins for Gage, which brings the dignity tax up to $30 total. So that's raised our league pot by $30. Still waiting on Eric and Ben's payments there, but I'm sure we'll get them in time.
Yeah, I think they're good for it. As far as the game's concerned, though, Trav, it really wasn't even close, which pains me to say, considering it is you.
It is, yeah.
144-94, just a real butt whooping. Matt Stafford came through for Pizza Hut Pepperoni Boys as the top scorer, which, I mean, Stafford's strong, maybe. We all knew. And yeah, I mean, there just wasn't enough sauce left in the jar for West Coast Stafford to come back from this one.
No, I had a big underperformance that week, and you know what? All I can do is say, ouchie, it hurty.
Yeah, and actually, your team had the lowest points total for the whole week across the league, which really just adds insult to injury.
Well, it fits in with our team motto. If you're going to lose, you might as well win losing.
Sure.
Let's move it on to week 7. This is the past week. We're going to just take a quick look at all the games. You know what? I want to start with, let's just look at this week's shame game, week 7. Pizza Hut Pepperoni Boys, the Dirkus Circus. Dirk came out on top. Big performance from A.J. Brown. Tennessee Titans are on fire these days.
Right. And the one thing that Pizza Hut Pepperoni Boys is not getting enough credit for is their total points scored compared to projections. Each and every week, they're outperforming team projections by at least 37%. And they've done this for all 3 of their wins this season. So although Dirkus did come out on top, another strong performance by Pizza Hut Pepperoni Boys. We'll see what happens to them next week. I think that game, or this coming week rather, has a lot of potential to be a real burner.
Yeah. Dirkus Circus is reminding me of like the Seattle Seahawks in the early 2010s. A lot of weapons, but pretty quiet, and yet somehow always showing up in playoff contention. My question is this brilliance on behalf of Dirk? Is it accident? What's going on? And can he ride it out the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. Dirk's up there in the top 3 at 5-2, really making a push for that sole first place spot. And he's got a pretty good lock on playoff potential for the end of this season. I think ESPN projects a 94% playoff rating for Dirk. So again, heading in the right direction. We'll just see how the rest of the season with injuries and bye weeks looming. There's been a couple of real blockbuster trades. We'll get to that later. But anything can happen. We're still pretty tight. The middle of this field is not that far removed.
That's right. All right, let's look at the next game. Ooh, the champ, Pete Gearling, taking on Team IR, which, let's be real, is probably aptly named. Ben only coming in with 93.6 total points. That hurts real bad. Let's see what's going on there.
Yeah, we got
to start talking about Patty Mack and the Kansas City Chiefs. What is going on with that team?
Yeah, it's hard to say. There was a big article on ESPN this morning talking about the Chiefs are in trouble, whether it was their offense, whether it was their defense. Maybe Andy Reid is just too old, or maybe his mustache is too thick. Nobody really knows.
Perhaps it's getting in the way of his play calling. He says bootleg option, but it sounds like bootleg option. Who would
Correct.
even know?
Who even knows?
I saw a stat that said Patrick Mahomes in the last 16 games or 8 games has thrown 16 interceptions, which is equivalent to the entire last 2 seasons of his quarterback performance. So
right.
a lot of red flags in their game right now. And that's definitely going to hurt Ben's chances as the season progresses because Patrick Mahomes is typically a cash cow in fantasy land.
Right.
Meanwhile,
and that's
especially. Oh, go ahead.
Well, and that has downstream implications too, because guys like Travis Kelce, the Cheetah, and the rest of their stellar, the Cheetah Tyreek Hill, I should clarify. The rest of their receiving core are not getting the production that we're used to seeing.
Nope. And Pete's team is definitely making an uptick since the beginning of the season. Joe Mixon is starting to get some pretty good points, getting some good production out of Deebo Samuel. Seems like San Francisco in general is stabilizing a little bit, which is important.
Yeah, and the Bengals are rolling too. Joe Mixon,
crazy. Who knew? And then got 12 points out of the Colts D and special team. That's pretty impressive, especially considering they were up against San Francisco. So he somehow was able to get 12 points out of the defense and a bunch of points out of San Francisco's wide receiver. That's just some brilliant fantasy GMing right there. Pete, good job on the win. Okay, let's take a look at the next game. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, we would be remiss if we really glazed over the fact that this is our second name change of the season by Ben Peters, Team IR. So keep them coming. Hopefully, as the season progresses, we'll see some more exciting changes. Sometimes that's all you need, just a little change of scenery in your team name to really catapult you into that next tier of fantasy football greatness.
Yep. And now we're going to take a look at a game that was simultaneously at the bottom of our league and, as much as I hate to say it, the top of our league. Worst in Gruden's emails up against Turn Your Head and Cup. Brandon, I got to say, your team is putting out some points these days. And it's upsetting in a very, very visceral way.
Well, it's a happy accident, let me tell you. Zero skill whatsoever involved in picking arguably some of the top 4 fantasy producers to date. I believe as of last week, I'm averaging 158 points per week, which is a lot.
That's a lot.
But guys like Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Mike Evans, this was with Mike Williams of the Chargers on the bench due to bye. So lots of things moving in the right direction for this guy.
Yep. Tom Brady, current yards leader in the NFL at the age of 44. Derrick Henry, obviously putting together another career year. Cooper Kupp seems to catch everything that's thrown his way. That's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on the other end, go ahead. I was going to say on the other end, we got Jimmy B, the Bigford, just suffering another loss. The pain threshold of this man is tough. He's in the dog days. Mid-season, another loss. Just struggling to get a lot of points, especially his tight ends, his wide receivers. It's not terrible necessarily, but it's just low enough to be getting another
But
loss.
the bummer about this game for Jim though, Jim had the third highest point totals across the league this week. So on a week where his opponent didn't score 174 points, Jim probably comes away with the W.
Yep, that's tough, but that's this is where the scheduling becomes part of the strategy here at this point. Anyways, Jim, we're really pulling for you. We are really pulling for you. Now, speaking of terrible scores, I got handed to me once again. I got absolutely rocked. I actually look at my score. So my team scored 80 points. My team scored 80 points. I'm like, did I forget to start some players? And the answer is no. I'm somehow getting low production. I also made a crucial mistake, which is I started the Jets defense, and they got me negative 11 points.
That's right.
So,
didn't New England put up like 60 points on them that week too?
no, 54. 54. Yep. Yeah. So pretty tough. And you know what? Hats off to I Chase Young Kids. Joseph, talk about a reassessment. His season started slow. He's been working hard to remanage the team. This is his, I think, third different quarterback in 3 weeks that he started. Last week he picked up what's it? Heineke? Is that his name? Heineke?
Of the Washington football team, indeed.
Yeah. Picked him up this week. He's got Tua, and Tua got him 26.5 points. For somebody who doesn't have a settled quarterback, that's a great pickup.
Well, and I believe I'll need to reference this, but I think Joe Peters, I Chase Young Kids, is on he's on a heater. 3 straight wins for I Chase Young Kids. So watch out next week. Whoever's got that team.
And impressive. All right, finally, let's take a look at Gravy Nady and the Eric Experience. This is good. Gravy Nate is another player that, man, started the season a little shaky, but he's up in that 3-4 gridlock that we got in our league, taking down the Eric Experience by only 15 points. Let's take a look at this. Matt Ryan, the starting quarterback. Matt Ryan's still in the league. That's pretty cool. They're still letting him throw a football.
They are. In fact, it reminds me of the time I was on vacation with my family growing up. We were in Missouri, and there was a lot of football there. And that's it. That's the story. Matt Ryan was also in Missouri.
That's great.
Just incredible how much talent and longevity. I think he's out there trying to be the next Tom Brady.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I like about Nate? I talked to him earlier in the season, and I said, what was your draft strategy? And he said he put every player available up on a board, and he took a bunch of darts, and he just threw them. And he was like, whichever darts hit a player, that's the player I'm going to draft. Now, he admitted he wasn't able to hit the dartboard even one time. So he ended up just kind of guessing. But so far, so good. Eric Experience. Let's take a look at this. We got Tannehill at quarterback. Man, that's interesting with Tennessee because you just got to believe most offensive production is going to Derrick Henry. If it's in the red zone, it's going to Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry's averaging 22 carries a game. And the unfortunate thing about that circumstance is even if they're playing from behind, they're playing to their strength, which is the running game. But I have to admit, I'm a little surprised. I thought for sure with that addition of Julio Jones in the offseason that they give Ryan Tannehill at least a few more options to throw to between Julio Jones and AJ Brown. But so far nothing. But I think he's got some real struggles with that offensive line. Taylor Lewan's been out for a little while, the injury. So who knows what the future looks like for Tannehill.
Yeah, and I'm looking here at Eric's team. He's got Herbert on the bench. I got to believe that most weeks Eric's inclination is to be starting Herbert. Herbert was on a bye last week. A lot of Eric's bench was on a bye. So hopefully this low production in the 90s was just a result of, the low cauldron of bye week.
Yeah, last week was heavy as these bye weeks start to come up in the schedule. That could be a real strategy buster. The Eric experience projected to finish seventh throughout the end of the season. Still on the fence though with making the playoffs. And as you'll recall, Trev, only the top four teams at the end of this
That's right.
league make the playoffs.
That's right. And we do have, kind of taking a look at the playoff picture here. There's some interesting disparity going on. We've got the top three teams. Let's see. Yeah, the top three teams are 5-2. You've got I Chase Young Kids on an absolute heater climbing up at 4-3. Then you have one, two, three, four, five more teams at 3-4, and there is one team at 1-6. We'll just nod and wink at the 1-16. But what's interesting is what are we? We're entering week 8. So we've got week 8, week 9, week 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We got 7 more weeks of regular season football.
Yeah,
That
the field is wide open,
and we're heading into injury season too. Far more likely to see injuries. There's a bunch of big injuries right now. I picked up what's his name, Knox, Devin Knox, Dawson Knox, right? Like 2 weeks ago because he was starting to blow up. He broke his hand. He's out for a couple weeks. On the defensive side, J.J. Watt's out with a season injury. Devontae Adams is out. I think a bunch of the Packers players are out on COVID protocol this week. You're just starting to see wear and tear. That's going to impact the playoff run.
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a trade for Deshaun Watson here in the next couple of weeks, who, as you'll recall, hasn't played yet for the Houston Texans. The Texans just dealt Mark Ingram. I forget where he went to the Eagles, maybe?
New Orleans, I think. Mark Ingram. Yeah.
So there's more activity like that taking place again as teams start to figure out their path to the playoffs. And the beautiful thing about fantasy football league, Trav, no trade deadlines. So for some of those bottom feeders, and even top tier teams in our league looking to break out and make some strategic moves, keep your eye open for that inbox. See if there's any good trades there.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder too how much win disparity is there actually going to be once we get to the top. That point total, which that's what we use as the tiebreaker, is probably going to get pretty important outside of big blockbuster trades, moving teams around, or injuries, reestablishing maybe the pecking order a little bit. That's just going to be tough. Going to be really tough. Speaking of that, I think the matchup to watch this upcoming week, in my opinion, is going to be Dirkus Circus and I Chase Young Kids. Dirkus Circus is hanging out at 5-2. I Chase Young Kids is 4-3, just behind them, and their point differential is only off by 90 points. So I mean, this could be a way for I Chase Young Kids to gain a lot of ground and shift up that playoff picture a little bit.
And very similarly, I think the game with Turn Your Head and Cup and Team IR has a lot of implication also. Again, two teams, one 5-2, the other 3-5, looking to make a move. The points projections in that game are at a very thin margin, within 10 points. That one could also go one way or the other.
For sure. I think what we're hoping to see as we enter week 8, in my opinion, is I'm ready for stuff to get shaken up a little bit. Felt like the first few weeks, everybody was winning, everybody was losing. These last middle weeks, feels like the status quo has been established. I'm ready to see some stuff move around. I'm hoping the mix of bye weeks, injuries, trades, things like that is going to be really beneficial. Well, listen, go ahead.
One last thing to kind of let everybody go off on. You'd mentioned points 4 as the real tiebreaker. Teams 5 through 9th place are all locked in at 3-4. And the point margin there is within 50 points from 9th place to 5th place. So that's a real significant jump, almost 4 places for such a narrow margin. You could easily make that up in a week, which only reiterates how close this race really is.
I know, and I get excited too because with the NFL season being a week longer this season, are we going to see NFL teams sitting players in different ways than they would have in past seasons? That'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. So we're excited about the playoffs, guys. We're excited about what's coming forward. Don't forget about this week's shame game of the week. Gage and the champ, the Pepperoni Boys versus Pete Yearling. Should be good. Pete, the pressure is on. I hope you join me in the shame circle because it's lonely and it hurts. All right, gentlemen. Brandon. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Trev, to this point, the group text has gotten really dull lately, which tells me one of two things. One, nobody uses their cell phone anymore. Or two, we're just not as fun as we thought we were. So hopefully we can rejuvenate some of the life back into this league.
I like that. Let's lean in. I'm going to start texting, I don't know, twice an hour. We'll just juice it up. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Butt Fumble with Brandon and Travis. Brandon, go ahead and close us with your sponsor, Peyton Manning, his catchphrase.
Yeah, this podcast has been graciously sponsored by Peyton Manning and Associates, Omaha.
Omaha. Have a good week, everybody.